The United Football League, is a professional spring football league. For those who don't know, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is one of the owners in the UFL. It was a merger of the United States Football League and the XFL as well. They merged the two together. They realized, and in my opinion, it was a very smart business decision. I thought it was only a matter of time for when they're going to be put together, but finally it did happen 2 years ago, and the USFL and the XFL, they merged together, make the United Football League, which is spring professional football. They had to move things around, though. There's been a lot of change in the league. Skip Holtz, who's the coach for the Birmingham Stallions, very decorated. He had the Stallions win 3 championships in a row, 2 in the USFL, 1 in the UFL. They won the first ever season of the UFL. And, he left the organization. There's been teams who have been moving around. There's a constant movement of teams now. And it's a lot different than the iteration that we had at the beginning of the UFL's existence. And there's some markets I didn't think that were going to get moved. I thought that if there was any teams that were going to stay, I thought San Antonio was going to be the team that was going to stay, and they got moved. Looking at the breakdown of everything right now, the Birmingham Stallions, of course, they're in the league, 3-time champions in spring football. That's a staple team in spring football. The Columbus Aviators are a new team. The Dallas Renegades, they remain. Besides that, the DC Defenders stay the defending champions from last year for the UFL. They stay in as well. No reason to take your defending champ out. And, the DC fans, they're incredible fans. And then the DC Defenders have a lot of support behind them. So, it's very, very good. There's a move I do not agree with right here. The Houston Gamblers do come back in replacement of the Houston Roughnecks. I would have just kept it the Houston Roughnecks. I thought the branding was a lot better. I thought everything was just a lot better with the Roughnecks. Bringing back the Gamblers. I'm not a big fan of that move, but that's just going to be how it is. The Louisville Kings enter into the UFL as well. Louisville, I've been a big proponent in professional sports going to Louisville. I think it's a very untapped market. I think there is a lot of opportunity in Louisville. You're at the point on the Ohio River where Cincinnati's not that far away from you. Indianapolis is only a couple hours drive north of you. But you have an opportunity to take a big grouping of people and put it around a professional franchise. You have Southern Ohio. You have all of Kentucky, especially Northern Kentucky. You have Southern Indiana. Heck, you even have parts of Southeastern Illinois that you could have all rally around a team in Louisville. I think this is a very smart move by the UFL to put the Louisville Kings into the league. The Orlando Storm, the UFL, and the XFL first iteration before COVID, when Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson started making all this happen, Orlando was a team, but they got moved. And so the UFL brings back a team into Orlando, and we'll see how that all plays out. And then, honestly, in my opinion, the best franchise for the UFL, the St. Louis Battlehawks. St. Louis is very football hungry. They lost St. Louis Cardinals, the football team, St. Louis Cardinals, to Arizona. They had the Rams move in from LA and lost the Rams as well back to Los Angeles. This is a team that means a lot to the city, and the city is a football city and craves football. St. Louis is a good team in spring football. They just cannot get over the hurdle to get to the championship game and win the championship. I think if all things kind of go right for St. Louis, this could be massive for the UFL. This could be massive for St. Louis as well. Now, this is, I have a lot of support for the UFL. I really do support the league and enjoy the league. I enjoy what they do. I enjoy what the league is about. They're about opportunity and getting guys chances to go play in the NFL. But here's where my criticism comes in for the UFL. I totally resonate with the message of spring football. I think it's very exciting. You get to see a bunch of players that you would not see. Either they just didn't make an NFL roster, did not get drafted, something, but this is their opportunity. They're playing their hearts out to try to make an NFL roster. But if you're going to have that sentiment, I think the smartest move for the UFL is to have some sort of business with the NFL. Because the UFL, it's a great product to watch. It is a league that has a great mission. but you're not going to compete against over $100 billion industry in the NFL. The NFL has a monopoly over all of American football. You cannot compete with the NFL. So, in order to try and have some sort of survival, I think the UFL needs to do what happens in baseball, what happens in basketball, what happens in hockey. I think they need to become affiliated with the NFL. I think the UFL has great potential to be its own showcase in the spring, but of up and coming players. And that's how they can market it. Because there's been many players on different teams around the NFL that were signed off of UFL rosters and just from spring football in general. If you look at Kevontae Turpin, he's one of the most highly regarded returners in the entire NFL, and he's been very helpful to the Dallas Cowboys organization. He came out of the USFL for the New Jersey Generals. He won 2022 MVP for the USFL off of the New Jersey Generals. And he's now played quite a cornerstone role and is the returner for the Dallas Cowboys. And, of course, he plays slot receiver as well. Like, he has a role on the Cowboys. But you can get more stories like that and more players like that in a smart way. Because I feel if the UFL tries to compete against the NFL when it comes to professional football and doesn't try to make an affiliation with the NFL, I think it's going to drown the UFL. I think the UFL has a good enough structure right now out of all the spring football leagues and all the spring iterations of football. I think they have the best structure and foundation right now, and they can only build on it if they choose to be smart. If they choose they want to compete with the NFL, they're going to crumble. That foundation is going to fall out from underneath them, and it's not going to work. It's just not going to work. But if they're able to merge with the NFL, have an affiliate kind of system in place, and are supported by the NFL, it could be a lot of what is going on between the NBA and the WNBA, where the NFL can help fund the UFL because the UFL could grow football in different markets that don't have professional teams. And you also get to see players up and coming that could be on NFL rosters. And if you can grow the league enough to where it's able to match 32 teams, every single team can be assigned an affiliate like they do in hockey, like they do in basketball, like they do in baseball. And each team could have players that, maybe are just not ready to go in the NFL, but have the opportunity to develop. Or they have players who cracked the roster before, but kind of need to go back down, kind of get some more reps, and then go back up to try to make the 53-man roster in the NFL. But there's so much possibility out of the UFL if they can merge with the NFL. And I think it's very untapped potential for the UFL if they can play their cards right and make smart business decisions here. And if the NFL and UFL can come together, this could really grow the game. This could really help the development of players. This could help the NFL as well, because players have opportunity. And that's what the UFL is. Their mission is about giving opportunity to players who didn't make the NFL. They have the reps, they have the film, they have everything to try to make that jump into the 53-man roster, or at least a practice squad on an NFL team. And the league gives them that option. But if the UFL and the NFL can come together and make that become a reality in a more practical sense, that helps out everybody. And I think that would be incredible. So that's my take on the UFL. I'm very excited for spring football to return. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how it plays out in its new markets. Teams were lost, teams were gained. The San Antonio Brahmas, that's the biggest one to me that I think that was lost, that shouldn't have been lost, because you have the Alamo Dome, you have a good support. You're in the state of Texas. Texas loves football. I think if they were able to just pour more into San Antonio, I think they could have gotten more out of it than they did, instead of having to move the Brahmas out of San Antonio. But we'll see how it goes. We will see how it goes for sure.